Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your Divorce Survival Guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact. Hey everyone, so glad you're here. When it comes to solo podcast episodes, I often think about recurring themes that I see either in my Facebook groups or with my clients and things like that. And today I actually posted in my Facebook group asking you guys who are in the Facebook group for what you guys want to hear me talk about. And there were so many answers. I'm like almost overwhelmed by all of the responses. And there's so many different topics, and I'm going to read you a couple of them. But what I notice is that there is an underlying theme to almost all of these. And that's what I'm going to address. I'm going to address the underlying theme because I think this is super important. So let me read you a few of these. How to deal with a strained marriage when lack of resources. Actually, this is a little bit separate. Lack of resources, emotional, energetic, time-based, financial, limits choice. Like, what do people who don't have family or friends nearby or the money to move on do when shit is falling apart? That actually does not have the same underlying theme as the others. So I'm going to answer that a little bit right now. And, the thing is that that's a real concern. I mean, this is a very, very real thing. If you literally do not have the financial resources to have two separate homes, to support yourself, the financial resources are such that you can't leave. That's real, right? And I want to acknowledge that there is a certain level of privilege in being able to leave your marriage. There is a level of privilege in being able to support two homes on one income, for sure. Even two incomes. I mean, it can be very difficult. In the United States, we have an economic system that is completely and utterly disproportionate in terms of what people need to, are the cost of living versus what people earn. Like, it's absurd. It's disgusting. If your marriage is strained, it's different from being abusive. Like, if you're in an abusive situation, then you call your local DV shelter and you do absolutely everything necessary and possible to get yourself to safety. Even if it means that you and your kids are living in a shelter for a while. If it means that you are actually physically safe and not going to physically harmed, then yeah, that's what you do. But if it's just a strained marriage, as in this comment, then you figure out some other ways to handle it, right? You might move into separate bedrooms. You come to some kind of co-parenting agreement within the walls of your house. You get yourselves into therapy so that you can come up with a co-parenting plan and a cohabitation plan that involves separation, right? And so this does hit the underlying issue. This means doing the work. This means doing work on yourself, which is really the underlying theme for everything, which is doing work on yourself so that you can get your anger under control, so that you can come to this place of neutrality that is so important in this process, no matter where you are in it, to process your emotions, to deal with your anger, to take responsibility for what's yours, to grieve what needs grieving. All of that you have control over. You may not have control over the finances and what all the choices are and whether friends are living nearby and people who can help and, a parent's house that you can go stay at, but you can get your emotional world under control. You can only control yourself in this, but you can work hard to bring yourself to a place of neutrality and calm and peace and lack of blame and lack of resentment so that you can make choices that may be difficult and may not be, maybe really hard, right? But they'll be much harder if you don't deal with your emotional fallout of the whole thing. If you don't do the work to heal your wounds and your resentment and your anger, it'll be a hell of a lot harder. In my divorce support group, someone says, different divorce support group, I guess, people wanted help on how to not feel like they are defined by being a divorcee. Another person says, the guilt of breaking my kids' hearts. Someone else says, the art of letting go of your soon-to-be ex, your kids, your future, controlling outcomes, all of it, while still taking care of yourself. It's so hard. I actually have a podcast episode coming up on that soon, so stay tuned for that. How to get over the fear of starting over when you've been together for almost half your life. Getting over the feeling that you've wasted so much time being with him. Getting over the feeling of being a failure. So again, the underlying theme here is you being deeply rooted in your own sense of self, in your own power. Being so fucking grounded in who you are that you're not living in fear, right? We are talking, when you're making a decision to leave your marriage, you are making a decision of great love. You may be scared shitless of what's on the other side, but at the end of the day, the bottom line is you are doing something out of love for yourself and your children. And that power of that love needs to follow you through, and it needs to carry you through to the other side. So you don't get over fear, right? You actually address it head on. You do the work to root deeply into, what am I afraid of? Okay. And then what's next? And then what's next? What is my deepest fear? Is your deepest fear, or do you have a fear of starting over? Or are you afraid that you are not enough on your own? Are you afraid that you won't be enough, you won't have enough, that you won't make enough, right? What are those fears? And are those valid, right? What's the 2% truth there? Because it might be true. Like, okay, I might actually have a legitimate fear that I won't be able to make enough money. Okay, so what do I need to do with that, right? Because the deeper we drill down, the more solutions we can find. If you're just staying in, oh my God, the fear of starting over, you will spin around that for eternity. But if you drill down into it, okay, what am I really afraid of? I'm afraid I won't make enough money. Okay, let's do an accounting. Let's do a budgeting and find out if that's actually a legitimate fear. Okay, I'm actually not going to make enough money. Great. So what do I have to do about that? Right? Do I need to find a different place to live? Do I need to take on a second job? Do I need to, ask for a raise? Right? That gets you out of the fear and into action. Getting over the fear that you wasted so much time being with him. You know what? Listen, you can circle that fear, but you can't change it. You did. You spent however much time you did with him, and now you're done and you're moving forward. And it's disempowering for you to feel like you wasted time. Right? That doesn't serve you. Spend some time with the regret and the anger and the grief and spend enough time with it so that you actually get it out of your system. Getting over the feeling of being a failure. You don't get over the feeling of being a failure. You get rooted into your deepest power. You get clear on who you are. You get grounded in your confidence. And then you don't have a feeling of failure. You have a feeling in a sense of, you know what, that happened and I'm moving forward now. And I'm going to do so in my greatest fucking power. Someone else says, guilt of wanting to leave a relatively good relationship. So I want to know what that means. I often see this, and then we dig in a little bit deeper, and I have to say, I perhaps want you to redefine what a relatively good relationship is, because if you are unhappy, and if you're unhappy to the point where you feel like you're dying inside and suffocating inside by being with this person, it may not be a good relationship. He may be a great guy, right? But I don't think it's a good relationship. Because if two people are not happy in the relationship, if one person feels like they're dying and they're suffocating, then it's not a great relationship. Here's one: how to start over fresh on your own when you've never been on your own. Again, the best way The 100% best way to start fresh on your own when you've never been on your own is to do the work on yourself, to find your confidence, to build your strength, and to step into your power. That is the best way for you to start over fresh on your own when you've never been on your own. Because if you've never been on your own, you have always been in some way dependent on another, right? And often codependently dependent on somebody else. You are working on getting your legs grounded under you. You are working on getting you planted, your roots so deeply planted into the earth, metaphorically and literally, right? Your power center so activated that no matter where you are, when you're on your own, you are fine. You are good. So getting unstuck when it's good enough to stay, it's still bad enough to go. Again, right? This is about you taking back your own power. This is about you understanding and knowing that you are worthy. You are enough. That it's good enough to stay, yet still bad enough to go, right? And I get that. I get that you're in the limbo. But I also think that if you were completely and utterly grounded in yourself and doing the work to ground yourself, then either the good enough would be good enough because you would have your sense of self no matter what, and what the marriage provides will be enough. You may not be looking for the marriage to provide everything anymore, or you'll be so grounded in yourself that you're not willing to take tiny scraps and breadcrumbs and think that they're good enough. Having the courage to leave a man who you know doesn't love you anymore. Again, you see the theme? You see the theme here, guys? A man who doesn't love you. Why would you need courage to leave a man who doesn't love you? What you need is inner strength. What you need is to know without a doubt who you are and what you are worth. Because right now, if you are staying with a man who you know doesn't love you, you're doing so because your self-esteem is so damaged that you think that that's okay. Imagine who you would be. I want you all to think about this for a minute. What choices would you make? Who would you be if you were so grounded and rooted in your own power? Think about someone that you admire, who you think is, really knows their own worth. It could be me, because I'll tell you, I do, right? But it could be someone that you know, or someone that you imagine, even if it's a celebrity, it doesn't matter. Think of someone that you get the sense that they really know who they are. They're rooted and grounded in their own power. They are kind, generous, open, resourceful, and they don't stand for anyone's bullshit. They have tremendous boundaries. They know exactly who they are. And imagine yourself as that. And what choices would you make if that was you? Or what choices do you think the person that you're imagining right now would make if they were in your position? All of this, if you are listening to this and you are saying like, fuck yes, I want that. I want it. I want that level of confidence, of self-esteem, of that depth of knowledge of who I am and what I'm worth, and confidence to make the choices, hard choices, confidence to have hard conversations, difficult conversations, then, I've told you guys, I think, that I have this program starting up next week. It starts on February 3rd, and it's called Rooted. And for those of you who have not done any of my programs, this program is for you. And I am running it live for 6 weeks, starting next week, starting February 3rd. It is the foundational program. If you're already doing my other programs, if you're already doing Should I Stay or Should I Go, this is not for you. This work is already in that program. But if you haven't done that program, then this is seriously, if you haven't done any of my programs, you have to do this. I'm not even kidding, right? Because This program literally is about finding your strength, building your confidence, and stepping into your power. We all have in us, right, this sense of knowing, right? That's the thing that I was just talking about, sort of imagining yourself as being this kind of person, right? There is a place within us, deep in our cores, that feels the truth, that knows the truth. And the question is whether or not we're going to tap into it, whether we'll listen to it, whether we'll honor it. And I bet if you sit quietly and close your eyes and ask yourself the questions that have been plaguing your thoughts day in and day out, a very clear voice will rise up from within you, and you'll have an explicit answer. The problem is that most of us don't trust that voice, right? Fear overwhelms us, doubt creeps in, and just as our motors begin to rev in the right direction, just as resolve and determination rise up, we stall out, and our internal needles return to the relative comfort of idling in neutral. And literally that is what this program is about. Because it's about that internal battle that keeps you stuck and confused and scared. And my guess is, if you're listening to this right now, you know you can't stay there anymore. You literally know you can't. That's why you're listening to my podcast right now. And that is why I created this program. I'll tell you a little story. So I think I've told this story before on the podcast. Over 20 years ago, scientists in Arizona created something called Biosphere 2. And it was a vast enclosed ecosystem in which they planted, among other things, trees. They had literally everything that a perfect ecosystem could have. Every species of plant and flora and fauna. I think they had animals. I'm not sure. Anyway, they created this whole thing, and it had trees. And the trees in this controlled and seemingly perfect ecosystem grew taller than any other trees of their kind. And the leaves were full and green and beautiful. And at first, the whole thing seemed like a huge success. But then something strange happened. All of the trees began to fall down. And they fell down because the one thing that this perfect ecosystem didn't have in it was wind. And it turns out that wind creates what botanists call stress wood, which is strong, fibrous wood that strengthens a tree's composition and deepens its roots. So in the absence of wind, with nothing to push up against, the tree's root systems were shallow and their wood was weak. And they were unable to survive. And the taller they grew, the weaker their root system was, and all the trees fell down. So that's what this program will do for you. It will have you be so deeply rooted in yourself that, like the oldest oak tree with the strongest stress wood, no matter which way the wind blows, you will still be standing tall and strong. So if you feel like you don't even know who you are anymore, and that in order to walk through this, you're going to have killer confidence, which you know that. If you know you need to start setting clear boundaries with everybody in your life, but particularly your husband, and if you've never set a boundary in your life, if you know you're going to have some of the hardest conversations you've ever had in your life, and if you know that you need to leave your marriage, but you really don't have any idea how you're ever going to find the strength to do it, even if you don't know that you need to leave your marriage, if you're still really questioning it and you're trying to figure out what's your responsibility, this program is exactly for you. I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of everything that's in the program. You're going to meet your inner guide. You're going to strengthen your bond with her so that she becomes the foundation for a lifetime of confidence. You're going to meet your inner critic so that you can learn what hidden gifts it might actually hold for you and use those to your best advantage rather than being a constant victim of the nasty voices in your head, right? If you're constantly being controlled by your fear, this is inner critic work, which is going to be absolutely vital for you. You're going to discover your core values so you can determine if your deepest truth, your true north, is being supported and aligned in your marriage. You're going to meet the team of other players who might be piping up in your head, right? If you think you might have more of a chorus than just one critic and one guide, lots of chatter going on in your head, you're probably right. You're going to meet all of them. You're going to learn how to set healthy boundaries and have difficult conversations so that you can move through this next transition in your life with grace and confidence. Whether that's leaving or staying, right? Like, we have to have boundaries if we're staying in a marriage. Boundaries are healthy for they're vital to any healthy relationship. And you're going to learn how the way you learn to love is affecting all of your relationships right now, especially your marriage, and how to make healthier choices around communicating your needs with everyone in your life. That's what's in this program. We start on February 3rd. It's live. So I am taking you through. You're going to get weekly calls with me. You're going to get access to my client-only Facebook group. You're going to get permanent access to my ongoing bi-monthly client-only community calls, which are amazing. Those calls are so fucking great. You're going to get 10 lessons, video, audios, worksheets, get my guest expert interviews. So all of this for the program is just $297. And it's 6 weeks with me guiding you through it. I want you guys all to do this. I didn't set out to make this podcast episode like a program pitch, but when I posted in the Facebook group asking everybody for what they wanted me to talk about, everything that was relevant to a solo podcast episode all had the same theme. Everything had this theme of, if you had your roots so deeply planted and you were no longer controlled by and influenced by and beaten down by your inner critic or the outer critics, by the way, right? If your husband or spouse is treating you like shit, then that voice gets wormed into your psyche. And there's a reason that you chose this person, right? So we got to do some deep work to get into that. So all of these things there was a theme. There was a theme that I couldn't ignore, and I needed to address it specifically. And the most obvious way that I can help you, here's the thing, guys, I am not here to just give you information. I am here to have you do the work to actually grow and change. You can sit here and listen to podcasts all you want, and that's great, and that is learning. But change, true change, comes from doing the work. So, and that's what I want from you. I want for you guys to do the work. I am put on this earth to effect change, not just talk about shit, but to effect change in as many women as I possibly can. Because that's how we change the cultural conversation. I'm not just here to change our individual conversations. I'm here to change the cultural conversation. And I do that by affecting actual change in women individually. I know it's lofty, but that's the truth. And if you've been around me for a while, you know my passion runs deep. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to my website, kateanthony.com. You're going to click on the Work With Me tab at the top, and then you're going to drop down to Rooted Live, and that's what you're going to do. Or you're going to click the link in the show notes, and you're going to sign up for this program. I do have a payment plan, so you can do it in 2 payments if you need to break it up, but that's what I want you to do. Okay, my loves. I am really happy that you have spent another little bit of time with me today and let me get fired up in your earbuds. And yesterday was my birthday. And I'm only telling you that because I think it's really important that we celebrate ourselves. And I have been celebrating myself all weekend. And I am thrilled to be celebrating with you guys. So if you want to do something for me for my birthday, sign up for my program. Come and get in conversation with me. Come and get to know me better and let me get to know you better and let me help you really, really shift and change. I love you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.